Any bug experts, please read this. Okay, so I don't know what I saw. I'm pretty sure it's not normal. Endless research got me nowhere, and Reddit won't be of any use. But one thing I can do is warn you all to never break into a really deserted, decaying, moldy place, which, for me, happened to be my childhood home. I was at a high school reunion with my friends in my hometown. It's pretty much a ghost town now, just some abandoned homes and rundown old shops, which were once somebody's dream. I was surprised the school was still standing and not affected by rain or rust. Sure, the paint was peeling off a bit in the once full-of-life gym, and the dust was super overwhelming, but it seemed fine structurally. Me and a few of my friends started getting bored. The reunion party poorly organized and sloppy. One of them suggested that we should check out some shops, see if anything's changed. We at first disagreed. After all, this was a ghost town. Forgotten, just lost in memory and scattered everywhere like puzzle pieces. But then it hit me. My childhood home. It wasn't that far. I told them all my plan, and maybe it would be nice to relive some nostalgia for the only time ever. It's not like anyone was going to come back here anyway. Why would they? Everyone agreed, and we started to walk there together, feeling like teens again. We got there after about 20 minutes of walking, and to our surprise, the house was untouched. The only sign of age was freckled mold that was dotted around a few cracks, but with a bit of elbow grease, it would have been ready for the marketplace. I started handing out flashlights, looking up at the sky with a face dramatically contrasted and highlighted by blends of sunset and shadows. Nightfall was just around the corner, so we had to act fast. We held our breath and marched in like soldiers. Walking inside was like stepping into a crime scene. Furniture laid dead on the floor, old certificates and books knocked off the shelves. The exposed wounds and gashes of the wall coughed and spurted with dust, a thick, slimy mold laced onto every surface. It looked like some sort of trail left by something. And there was food. Lots of food. Rotting, soggy loaves and dented cans forced open bled out the weird stuff. We all stood shocked, staring as our flashlights highlighted and exaggerated each mark. How did the house get this destroyed in just a few years? Vandals and explorers? No, the mess didn't seem human. It wasn't naturally caused either. Nevertheless, we continued. A few of my friends dancing with the flashlights to try lifting the mood. Then we entered the kitchen. The once fluorescent white tiles were sticky and coated with the same fluid. Old recipe books, cutlery, and more rotting food laid out in a trail. I noticed how forks and sheets of writing were glued to the wall, imprisoned by the mysterious yellow layers of goo and never-ending bushes and tangles of fungi. Fiddling with the flashlight, the flashing beam sputtered and lazily shone, illuminating the path with much-needed strength. It went on endlessly, crawling onto the window when the glass suddenly shattered. The window panes now were so sensitive that a small flash would shatter them. I'm no architect or whatever, but it didn't seem normal. Suddenly, an excruciating howl of pain wailed and echoed through the walls. We stopped in terror. What in the world was that noise? It wasn't human, that's for sure. It was like a deep howl from some sort of thing. And it seemed too real for a prank. Each one of us stared at each other, pale as ghosts, wanting answers but fully knowing that none of us knew. After being rooted to the kitchen floor for what seemed like an eternity, one of my friends suggested that it was most likely the pipes after being abandoned for so long. The rest of us started to criticize him, but he just returned a small shrug that shut us up. We were so paranoid that it was starting to slowly turn us against each other, manipulating our fear. I gave an apologetic nod, and we began making our way upstairs, sidestepping and avoiding every dropped sheet and crumb that oozed the slime, not knowing if it was disease-ridden or toxic. The halls were once again in a terrible state, a foul, rank stench that made us splutter. None of us could pinpoint where it came from, but we all agreed it wasn't good. The matted carpet was glued together, a hard outer shell of mucus keeping it in place. We got closer and closer to my room, and a feeling of dread churned and brewed inside of me. I told the rest that I felt uneasy. They clearly felt that way too, but instead began faking their courage, telling me to stop being a wimp and go inside despite feeling just as reluctant to. The beams and walls began to shudder, an eerie ambiance of a spirit song humming behind the door, with an orchestra of deep, bellowing moans. We finally reached the sticky, yellowed door, the knob gleaming with temptation covering a probably horrendous secret. After you, I muttered, my voice cracking. Each person shook their heads frantically, nudging me against the cold surface with their flashlights. Sighing, I tried taking control of my fears, letting therapeutic breaths turn me into a braver person. The door began to creak with a chunky lisp left behind thanks to the slime, the last hint of sun shining through a cluster of bubbles before crawling behind the flaking windowsill. And there it was. A giant silhouette imprinted onto the floor, an aura of looming dread blowing inside the room like wind. Our eyes began to scan the room bottom to top in suspense, our mouths dry like sand. Before I could identify what it was, a deafening roar shook the house. Planks of wood caved in on us, dried scalps of paint and dust showering us as we squeaked in terror. This couldn't be real. It was like a horror movie come to life. It towered over us. Two fleshy, maroon pincers clawing threateningly toward my face, severing the air like paper. Imagine how strong that thing must be on flesh. Human flesh. A vulnerable meal of 5 young persons stuck in a place like helpless sitting ducks. I could see its body clearly now. A massive, maggot-like creature, roughly the size of a car. Covered in the wet mucus, gleaming a sickening beige in the inky shadows. So that's why the whole house was covered in thick goo. This creature was leaving its trail and slithering everywhere, like a slug. Thriving off mold and rotting wood. We had to get out, and fast. If this thing got out into the real world, what would happen? Was it invincible? Was there more of them, like an army? What even was it? The 5 of us bolted down the stairs, pushing and sliding down the railing. Each footstep crunched against the ancient hairball of a carpet, imprinting the jagged heels of our shoes like a footprint on the moon. It came swiftly after us, crashing and tumbling over each object violently and with the same somber hum. Could it open doors? Definitely not. Well, just in case, when we got out, I'd barricade the door outside with a stick after we escaped. Which, for me, was a miracle how I did. A sharp, gut-wrenching pain in my heel caused me to fall down the stairs hard, my nose embracing the floorboards hard as a small yowl hissed from my lips. My flashlight clattered next to me, the parts clicking apart from the impact. I must have broken my nose. It was quite a fall, but that didn't matter now. All that mattered was leaving this screwed-up place behind. Standing up was impossible, my foot squelching against the dirt in agony. Screeches continued to fill the place that belonged to me, escaping like steam on a train. Squinting my eyes was my only form of vision. Was I blacking out? A few drops of something stung my rosy cheeks, wakening me a bit. Blood. My friends had probably left, so I was alone. Looking up itself was a challenge, but when I did, I saw it. 2 gnarly pincers oozing with blood, chewing on flesh with a sickening, squelching noise. It had no eyes, but seemed to have excellent smell and hearing. As it pounced upon my face, a friend heroically dragged me out, clasping me hard by the shoulders as the door slammed against its face. "Thank you," I whimpered as the other 3 started to lift me up. The ambulance had taken me away. Instantly. My friends tried to explain what had happened, but when they went to investigate, apparently the house was gone. Wiped off the map. Never existed. All that was left was a clearing of dying grass. Anyway, turns out the thing had bitten my heel clean off, and my nose was fractured. I'm actually still at the hospital at the time of posting this. Doctor said I should feel fine, but I'm still shaken up. But who wouldn't? Maybe someone else had a similar experience. Who am I kidding? Of course not. Oh well. Venting helps at least. Thanks so much for listening, guys. A quick shout out to my patrons: Kevin Kess, Sabiel Eclipse, 055555, Cormac Wells, Amara, Matthew Steiner, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Mr. Sankofa, Michael Milburn, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Andreas Anderson London, Lawrence Wallen, Geek Sanctuary, Melissa Perez, and this guy. That is someone's actual username. I love that. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If there's anything you would like me to pray for, I would love to know how I can be praying for you. I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.